In the city of Cupertino, all actions of local government fall under the authority of the City Council. 5 candidates are in the running for 3 seats on Cupertino City Council. As part of the City Channel's ongoing coverage of this race toward Election Tuesday, you're about to see an up-close and personal introduction to one of those 5 candidates. This is Candidates Q&A with tonight's featured City Council candidate, Don Burnett. Tonight's segment was recorded on Friday, September 26th.
Hello, I'm Michael Cronk from the San Jose Mercury News, and this is Pam Marino of the Cupertino Courier. Today we'll be interviewing Don Burnett, one of 5 candidates running for a seat on the Cupertino City Council. Welcome, Don.
Glad to be here.
When you were elected for the first time in 1993, you were several major planks in your platform, if you will. One concerned trying to resolve the issue of development of the diocese site. Another was your concern about you wanting to reopen the general plan, to review that because you felt that the amount of growth that was allowed in that was excessive. Looking back on your first term and now as you're seeking election, re-election, how would you assess how you've done on those issues you campaigned on and what needs to be done still?
Well, it's kind of a little bit unusual, I think, that it's taken so long for these to come to a conclusion. To deal with the diocese first, a lot of the time has been consumed by a 2-part process. One was getting the general plan amendment, which was done and was approved, and now the second part is getting an actual project approved. And that is just in the process of coming before the council now. And unfortunately, because of a conflict of interest of one of the council members, it looks like it's going to be split 2-2. So the issue will probably be decided after the election by the new council. So I support the decision to accept the open space in exchange for the 178 units. And I hope we have 3 votes that agree with me after that time so we can move ahead with the project. I've looked at another development by the developer we have. It's in Menlo Park. It's beautiful. If we get this through, I'm sure it'll be one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in Cupertino. And the open space that we're acquiring is really the most visually sensitive parts of the land and the parts of the land that yield the most benefit in terms of public recreation. So I think it's in years in the future this will be regarded as a really good land use decision, kind of a landmark of a way to develop a sensitive area like this to try and balance off all the interests. The general plan was a little more difficult to get to where we are now. At our October 6th meeting, we will finally be addressing at the council level a lot of the main growth issues that I was concerned about and initiated my desire to be on the council. Specifically, the tier system with its 2 million plus square feet of growth, the setback and height issues that go along with it, a number of other bonuses. Our general plan is just laced with growth bonuses of various kinds that it's very complex, and I'm hoping to simplify it and we have it something that's more understandable to people and a better balance of all the interests in the community. It's taken this long because really we had to get 3 votes that were willing to open the general plan, and it was only with Michael Chang's election, with John Bautista and myself, that we had 3 votes that were willing to do that. And so we had initiated the process late last year, and it's finally coming to the council now. And I have hopes that that'll be resolved by the election. But again, it's a case where I think all the candidates owe it to the public to make clear where they stand on this kind of development and what their priorities are in the amount of development that's allowed.
Now, in that election, because you were sort of on a slow growth platform, over the last 4 years, a lot of housing's been approved, over 1,000 units of apartments, 200 homes. That doesn't seem very slow growth to some people.
No, it doesn't. and it's not in terms of housing. This was all part of the general plan. We inherited a general plan with 2,500 units of housing, which is a state requirement, by the way. There's no state requirement for any other kind of development, but the housing is a state requirement. And we had the apartment developments that have been took place in areas that had been zoned for apartments. I think they're suitable for apartments, most of them. They're on arterial streets, really not logical places to put single-family developments. The need for housing is acute. It's reflected in the high prices for everything here. So every kind of development stresses the community, and 2,500 units is, in my mind, just more than the infrastructure of Cupertino really can absorb. It's too big a number. But the development that we've done so far is beneficial. It provides housing in an area that's housing poor, and provides housing in a lower price range than single-family dwellings. So we have a broader economic group of base in terms of the type of people who can live in the community. You don't have to have quite as much money to live in those apartments. All of the readily developable apartment sites are developed right now. So we're kind of at a watershed of that kind of development. And as Commissioner Harris has suggested, this is a good time to see how we accommodate the amount of growth we've had. You know, how much increased traffic results, what's the impact on the schools of these apartments filling up and the city having to absorb them. And it's certainly, in my mind, a good time to slow down on this kind of thing and absorb what we've got and see where we are before we decide to move further. We've been able to put in an affordable housing project, and there's so much fear of this type of development that I feel very good that we're able to put in a project like that. It's only 40 units, but the price range is down where a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford this to live in the city can live there. It's a nice development. The people who live around it, who were originally very afraid of it, they participated in the process of developing it. And for the most part, they've come around and they say, hey, this is an asset. This is better than the broken down empty lot that was here before. There's a coffee shop there. There's a sandwich shop there that they didn't have before. They can get things to eat. And one of the most vocal opponents of the project before it was built came to the developer and said, gee, this has been good for the community. If you want someone to come and speak to groups in the future about how you can have this kind of development without it harming the neighborhood, he'd be willing to do that. So I think that's been a big success. But it's not just the units in Cupertino that we're having to deal with, because of course there's a lot of growth around us, a big San Jose project that's right up Stevens Creek as well. So I think it's important to see how that works out. And as I said, the open land has been developed. What future development occurs is basically going to have to be knocking something down and building up something new. And the tendency is always to make more dense, and get creeping density as you do that. And I think it's really important to resist that trend and to try and stick with the basic density that I think is good for the community, which is a suburban type density.
Okay. Speaking of, let's talk about needs of the community. In regards to the budget reserve, which is quite healthy and has been built up over time. What would you like to see done, if anything, in terms of community projects, where that money should be spent?
We do need to expand our senior center, and that process has started, and that'll give us the money to do that comfortably. Also, there's pressure on the library We need to improve our library services. Some combination perhaps of expanded facilities and longer hours, which work in very different ways. The city pays for the Sunday operation of what is basically a county facility just to provide more for Cupertino, and we own the building. So if we expand the building, that's a city function. If we extend the hours any beyond what they are currently, that again would be a city expenditure. And in order to do that, one way to do that would be to set aside some of our general fund balance money and say this is like a trust fund to provide us with money so that we could pay for the additional staff required for the additional hours. That's one way to do it. With the sale of the water company and the extra $10 million that puts into the general fund, that brings our balance up pretty close to $30 million. And there's a lot of thought that, you know, gee, this is too big a balance. It's a big balance, and it's money that should be used for the best interests of all the people. But what's not realized, not mentioned often enough, is that the income generated by that money is valuable in itself. It makes a significant part of the budget. Just having the income, $30 million generates $1.5 million roughly a year in income on a $20 million budget. So as that's spent down, that kind of income goes away. So one has to watch all of the things that are going on, some combination of needed capital improvements, which is the buzzword for things like expanding the library, fixing the streets, and that sort of a thing, where it's a one-time expenditure, and keeping a reserve, because even with reserves in the order of $18 to $20 million in the early 90s, the council at that time was cutting back really sharply on services, and the library hours were cut, maintenance in the city landscaping was reduced, and it was because when balance is going down, rightfully, city councils get very, very nervous because you don't know when you're going to see the upturn at the end of that cycle. But right now we're prosperous, but we know that isn't going to go on forever unless we're exceedingly lucky. And when the next time comes and we start losing income, I would work to keep a balance high enough so that we would feel comfortable with saying, yeah, we can handle a deficit of $500,000 for a year or two here. We don't have to take drastic measures to get the cost down because we're afraid of running out of money. I'm a physically conservative person, and I run the city like I run my own money. Careful.
You were not in favor of the Apple sales tax plan.
Yes.
That brings sales tax money into the city now that Apple has its sales office here. And just the first few months, money's coming in, possibly in the six-figure range. Do you still think the sales tax deal was a bad one? And do you favor any kind of incentives for business to come here to Cupertino?
Well, it's kind of two questions. I'll deal with the sales tax issue first. I think in general, taxes come in and they're for the benefit of the people, and that the general principle should be that those come into government and they're spent by the government for the people's needs. It's become more and more prevalent. It started out with redevelopment, and then more and more for companies to essentially pay what amounts to bribes for companies and stores to come into their communities. Typically, these are for some relatively minor fraction of the revenue, and they usually sunset after like a year or year and a half. And what bothered me about the Apple arrangement was that the deal extended without attenuation with full payback to Apple for the entire 5 years of the agreement. And it was a big payback. If the revenues go over $1 million, half of the money goes back to Apple. And that's just too much. And the problem needs to be solved at at some higher level like the legislature, because there's no limit on what can be done here. At the end of the 5 years, in theory, Apple could go out and say, Campbell, what do you give me? You know, Palo Alto, you know, got 50% here from Cupertino. Anyone go for 60? You know, people say, well, they wouldn't do that. But hey, it's already gone from like a typical 25% year and a half to up to 50% in 5 years. That's a big jump. And it essentially took place with that one agreement. So yes, it's good for Cupertino and it's good for Apple if you just put your blinders on and look at it that way. But it's not good for the people, the community as a whole. And I think one has to look at it that way. You know, there's not a barbed wire fence around Cupertino. I mean, when money moves from Campbell to here, Campbell hurts. That's not the right way to do business.
Talking about issues where, regional issues, if you will, competition, retail competition, shopping centers, malls.
Mm-hmm.
In Cupertino, of course, the big one is Valco.
Yes.
And in recent times, there have been some problems with that center. Do you have any ideas or thoughts on how the council and the city could help revitalize that center?
I think the city is doing what it can, and what that amounts to right now is trying to get a viable store in the old Emporium site. People who own that have put in a really very low-end type of operation in there that, you know, tends to lower the price level of everything in Valco. And the city is working with the people who own the land and with the State Attorney General's office to see if what's going on there is really monopolistic type practice to protect nearby stores that don't want the competition from a new top quality retailer. There's a new top quality retailer that has indicated a strong interest in taking that site, and that could be the first step in turning it around. So we're hoping that that will occur. City can't drag people off the street and force them into a shopping center. Fundamentally, that the management of the center has got to do the job of getting the right mix of stores and providing the services to the stores to make it attractive to people so they come in there and want to shop.
Do you favor a redevelopment district around Valco?
I don't really have a position on that right now. My feeling is redevelopment is, for one thing right now, in order to have redevelopment, you have to show both economic and physical blight. In other words, it has to be distressed both in terms of not making a whole lot of money, and it has to be run down and looking bad. So it's very difficult for us to get a redevelopment agency, even if we were to try and do that. But that's the too much of this, let's do something and get a fix here kind of a solution for me. That what is it you're going to redevelop to? I think that's the question you need to answer. Somebody look at the current retail situations. What kind of shops are people buying in right now? What's the thing to do with the competition from online shopping and other kinds of things? Current trend, big box, low price, high volume. At one end, pretty successful. Exclusive stores at the high end are doing pretty well. The stores in the middle are not doing too well. In the light of that, what's the best thing to do at Valco? I don't know. I'm not a retail expert, but when some retail expert comes in with a logical plan that says, if we do this, we can make Valco profitable again. And if it makes sense to me, I'll say, okay, let's take a look at it.
Let's talk campaign financing.
Mm-hmm.
In recent elections, including the ones in '93, there's concern over increasing amounts of money being raised and spent in local city council elections, the use of consultants, literature, that type of thing. This time around, is your spending level much less than your first attempt at the council in '93? Are you using consultants? Is money coming from outside the community to you? Who's financing?
Okay.
your campaign?
I plan on spending less than I did last time. I'd hope to do the campaign for maybe $8,000, something like that. I'm fortunate I have enough money. I drive a small car, so I got extra money. So my hobby is running campaigns, and I can do that. And I try and raise money, but I don't appeal to big contributors because I'm a grassroots kind of a candidate, and so the restriction to small contributions doesn't influence me at all because most of my contributions have always been in the order of $25, $50 contributions. And I raised $3,000 something that way last time, and I'm hoping to do as well or better this time. But I don't have an extensive fundraising effort because I'm time limited. And I can spend my time getting out and walking precincts and talking to people and preparing literature to get people the story of what I think we've accomplished in the past 4 years and what I hope to accomplish in the future. And that plus doing the day-to-day council stuff keeps me pretty darn busy. And so I'm hoping to get a little envelope or a little opening in time to go out and make some phone calls and get some of my envelopes out to try and raise money to minimize the impact on my own finances. Because we can't really, it's not really fair to expect people to have to put their own money in. But it's just fundamental. It's a fact of life. A grassroots candidate has a harder time of doing it. And it's always going to be that way. And my personal feeling is that some of the new limitations, like windows on when you can raise funds, are pretty draconian because, if my wife was saying before I left home, I think you can only raise funds for another 2 more weeks. And I thought, oh my gosh, because that's not much time to do that. And I feel for the other candidates who don't have funds available to do that, and you're really in a bind. How do you run for office and you run out of time and you've got a budget of $6,000 and you've only raised $2,000, and that's a lot of money to have hanging out there. So. Sure. The new climate is a very difficult one, and my feeling is it's made it difficult for the little guy out of proportion to what it has for people with more power, who have bigger organizations that can go out and reach a lot of people quickly and get a lot of $50 contributions like some local organizations can do.
Kaiser has said that they're not going to pursue a permit for now to burn tires in their cement kiln, but they may come back in the future and try and seek a permit with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. What is your position on tire burning, and what would you do if they came back asking for a permit?
My position on tire burning is, with what we know right now, tire burning is not the right thing to do, and Kaiser has said that they won't do it. I've served on the tire burning, I forget the name of the committee, but the
communications group, yeah.
Communications group, and it's been very educational kind of a thing. It's a very complex technical issue, and combined with a very emotional issue. And I guess the thing that I would hope to see in all these future issues of this kind, tire burning or other Kaiser things like the dust problem, is that we have a little more calm in addressing the issue, and we look at all sides of what's going on. Right now, the state of the art in figuring out health effects is not good enough for us to really know for sure whether tire burning is beneficial or harmful. And people say, tire burning beneficial? How could that be? Well, it could be if some of the pollutants which went down turned out to be more important than other pollutants which went up. I mean, it wasn't that everything went up. It was some things went up and some went down. Sulfur dioxide went down. The carcinogens went up. An awful lot of really pure emotional response to burning tires because of the image of a tire with that ugly billowing smoke up there, that that has to be tempered against the reality of what happens when they burn tires in the kiln. They measure the gases coming out of the stack, and my belief is that in all cases of dealing with pollution, we have to use technology to make these decisions. You just can't say, you know, this or that is just, no molecules of it are acceptable. I mean, most of these things are already around in certain quantities in the atmosphere. All of the pollutants that come from Kaiser or come from other places as well. So I think Kaiser seriously misjudged what the community response would be to this, and they should have involved the community from the beginning before they did the first tests. And I think if they had done that, they would the decision would probably have been the same as it is, but it would have been done with a great deal less emotional stress on the part of the people. People are really concerned about tire burning, really afraid of it. From the evidence we saw in the committee, the increase in the cancer risk was something like 2 parts per million increase in chances of getting cancer over a 70-year exposure for people who are right next to Kaiser. Well, that's a pretty small risk for a pretty long exposure. And the thing is, why should people accept any increased risk is a legitimate question. That's what people say. But there are neighbors nearby who do say, gee, that's so small a risk that I'm willing to accept it. But the will of the community overall is clearly, no, let's not do that. And that seems to be right now.
Well, it looks like we're out of time. Thanks for joining us today, Don, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Election Tuesday is November 4th. Please vote for the 3 candidates best suited to serve on Cupertino City Council. And keep watching the City Channel for more special City Council election programming.